What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and our honorary co-host, Tibosaurus Rex. He made his reappearance on the channel last week, and lo and behold, the New York Giants won a football game. Tibosaurus never fails us, bringing that good energy and that good luck. It's a victory Monday for the New York Giants. Did we expect to be having a victory Monday? Maybe not. Are we forever grateful to be having one? Abso-freaking-lutely. Love it when the New York Giants win a game. Yesterday's game was an interesting one. Great first half from the New York Giants, and really throughout all four quarters, suffocating pass rush from the Giants defense that struggled a lot through the first 2 weeks of the season, but major bounce back from this Giants team. Very exciting stuff. And we're excited to go ahead and dive into it, discuss this pass rush, talk about how well this Giants team played, and, maybe some of the drawbacks. It wasn't perfect by any means. The Browns hung in there and had a few opportunities to win the game in the fourth quarter, but in the end, the New York Giants did prevail, and we're happy to be talking about the first win of the season for the New York Giants. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and dive in and discuss how great this pass rush was and how it helped the Giants beat Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns in today's episode of Fireside Giants, powered by BetUS. So without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today? How are you feeling on this great Victory Monday, and what was your reaction to yesterday's game?
I'm doing great, man. Listen, Giants winning a football game, honestly one that we were very suspect about. I think the vibes were quite down after the Commanders lost, but now we bounced back, get a big win. The defense had a huge day, and in today's episode, we're really going to focus in on this pass rush and really how excellent they were. On the Browns' offensive line, they were missing some key pieces. They lost a couple during the game. But man, the sign of a good defensive line is one that dominates a bad offensive line. And the Giants showed a lot in their bag. And you know what, Anthony, I'll give a huge piece of credit to defensive coordinator Shane Bowen, who not only showed up, but showed out. He went from having a simplified system over the first 2 weeks of the season to really expanding his kind of strategy, and he got really creative. He was sending extra blitzers. It was almost like he mashed his system with Wink Martindale's into this more simplified but yet very exciting kind of pass rush defense that was sending a lot of safeties and this guy and that guy and linebackers, and I thought that was really exciting. And maybe the defensive players had a little bit of a say in that. Maybe they say, you know what, this system is not working. Let's see if we can blend what we know how to do with what we're learning how to do. And they took a lot of those same attributes that we saw from Wink's defense and really said, you know what, let's send Jason Pinnock, let's send this safety, let's send this linebacker, let's send this DB, and see how we can create some mayhem and force Deshaun Watson to not only move in the pocket, but drop his eyes. And that resulted in a couple fumbles, it resulted in a couple of sacks, and it resulted in a lot of pressure from this Giants defensive front, who really stepped up and performed well. So I was ecstatic watching this defense in general. My reaction the day after is I looked at a lot of the stats. I looked at a lot of the different kind of metrics that painted a picture of what this game was. The Giants did a really good job, and Daniel Jones and Brian Dable schemed this up really well in terms of focusing on short yardage behind the line of scrimmage. And 0 to 9 yards from the line of scrimmage. Daniel Jones had 183 of his 223 yards, something like that. But a good 70-80% of it was from short yards, and they were just taking what the defenses gave them. And ultimately, that's what good players do. That's what good systems do. They exactly do that. They capitalize on what opposing teams are willing to give. And the Browns were willing to give the Giants a lot of screens, willing to give them a lot of short concepts, willing to give them a lot of yards after the catch. And the Giants with Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale had a big game. A guy had been screaming to get more involved, and they finally did. They schemed him the ball. They got him the rock and let him cook in space. Now his catch radius is tiny. He's not a guy you want making extended catches, but if you get him the ball and you're accurate with it, he can do a lot of damage after the catch. So I like him a lot. Really think they did a good job getting him more involved here. The Giants offense looked competent, and at least in the first half. The second half was a little bit down. Momentum shifting fumble by Devin Singletary, but he ends up finishing the game. Had a really solid game nonetheless with a touchdown, and would have had two. So in total, this was a really nice complete game from the Giants. But the pass rush, which we called could be a top 5 unit this year if they reach their potential. We saw that top 5 potential yesterday, my friends. We saw what they could be. Now it's time to do it against the Dallas Cowboys and really put them in hell. So I'm excited for this upcoming Thursday, Anthony. But I'll let you get your take on the pass rush. We'll talk about the individual players and our perspectives into who played really well, who had a lot of impact plays, and I think for the most part, everyone had a pretty solid game in this one.
I think so too, and you did mention it, the Browns' offensive line was really banged up, but I'm not going to use that as a way to take away anything from this Giants pass rush, because I thought they played excellent brand of football regardless. And one note that I'll make on that, Alex, you need to see your good defensive line beat up on bad offensive lines to feel good about your defensive line, right? Like if this Giants team was going up against a bruised and battered Browns O-line and they didn't get a ton of pressures, we'd be really concerned. But they went up against a bad, injured offensive line. They put up a bunch of pressures, got a bunch of sacks. And what that's going to do, give them confidence and motivation going up against better offensive lines. They're going to remind themselves, remember when we had that sack party in Cleveland and we absolutely destroyed that offensive line? Well, let's just live up to that potential every single week, whether we're facing an injured offensive line or not. Another thing to note about this game, though, Alex, the final score, 21-15. Boom, bang, bing, pow. We hit the under, baby. That's 2 in a row for Fireside Giants bets with BetUS. And I do want to go ahead and take a look at tonight's game. Got the Bills going up against the Jaguars. And really quickly, I'm on a 2-game streak here, guys. 2 wins in a row. Start betting with me. I'm going to throw $10 down today on the Buffalo Bills going over on their total team points at 24.5. They've had over 30 points in both games. This feels low to me. It's minus 115. I'm throwing down $10. The Bills putting up 24.5 or more points against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think the Jaguars have let up a bunch of points so far this season, but they also haven't faced very good offenses. The Bills are a juggernaut offense. I think they go over 24.5, and I'm taking that bet and hoping to make this a 3-game win streak here with my bets here on BetUS. Make sure you guys check out the link down below and take advantage of the sign-up. 125% match on the deposit. Fastest payouts in the industry over at BetUS Sportsbook. Go ahead and check it out down below. But diving right back into this New York Giants football team. Alex, last week you weren't able to make it because you were ill, but I did have a excellent time interviewing Coach Jay of TBR Training and breaking down film on Kayvon Thibodeaux and Brian Burns. And one of the things that he was discussing was that the Giants pass rushers were doing a lot of things great, but there were little minor details between the snap and the ball being thrown that they just needed to clean up, and they would start turning those pressures into sacks. And literally a few days after he said that on this channel, the Giants did exactly that. They turned those pressures into sacks. And if you watch some of the film from week 2 on Brian Burns that Coach Jay and I broke down, and then you watch some of the film from week 3 that we haven't broken down just yet of Brian Burns, some of those little minor details and mistakes that he was making, he cleaned up and he got to the quarterback. It was actually really fun and exciting to kind of watch that game, think back on that interview and film breakdown with Coach Jay, and then see all of that get put into practice and result in sacks in week 3. And Brian Burns, the strip sack was phenomenal. He was speed to power, which again was something that we discussed in that episode, using speed and then transitioning into power, getting to the quarterback and taking away that 0.5 second advantage that quarterbacks have to throw the football. I saw that with Brian Burns. I saw that absolutely with Dexter Lawrence, who was a just wrecking ball in the middle of the offensive line once again, like he has been every single week. But I even saw it with Elijah Chapman, of all people. That guy was getting after the quarterback, the undrafted rookie free agent, doing his thing and recovering the fumble from Brian Burns. There were just so many standout performances up front for this Giants team, but I want to hone in on Alex, Brian Burns. I do want to discuss him, talk about what an impact he's made, because like I said, looking at that film with Coach Jay and kind of looking at him past the box score stats through the first 2 weeks of the season, he's actually been a very impactful player for this New York Giants team every single week. This week, he finally had his big splash play. He had a sack, he had a forced fumble. He was phenomenal. But he was also consistent on a down-to-down pressure basis. He had one of the best games of his career from pass rush win rate, the 6th highest pass rush win rate that he's ever posted in a single game in his career at over 39%. To win almost 40% of your reps as a pass rusher is just incredible. Elite production from Brian Burns in week 3 against the Cleveland Browns. Alex, how are you feeling about that? What was your reaction to watching Burns just constantly getting in the backfield, harassing Deshaun Watson, and just making an impact in this game on a down-to-down basis?
I mean, listen, this pass rush, when it comes to the high-profile players, now we know Kayvon Thibodeaux is a work in progress. We know that he is still trying to find his groove here, but he made a really big play late in that game to stuff that third down conversion. And, then you look at the play after that, Deshaun Watson gets stuff, and the Giants turn the ball over. Now, they missed the field goal. It's a different story. But, I'll tell you this. When you look at Brian Burns, you talked about him. Brian Burns, with the contract that he got, a lot of expectation comes with that, $150 million. And Brian Burns has lived up to that contract so far, in my opinion. In this game, he had 6 pressures. He had 4 hurries, a sack, and a quarterback hit. He was really, really good. He had a 15.2% pass rush win rate, which was actually slightly higher than Dexter Lawrence's win percentage, and was really, really good. I mean, he makes an impact, and you talked about your interview, and it's the small details that go unnoticed at times when it comes to Brian Burns. He does everything so well. Teams do not want to run in his direction. They don't. They have to protect. They have to chip him. Like, they have to allocate resources to stopping him. He creates a lot of mayhem, and he's 26 years old. When you have a player like that, it opens up a lot of different opportunities. And then you add Dexter Lawrence to the mix, guys, who, by the way, had 7 pressures, 2 sacks, 3 hurries, and 2 quarterback hits in this game. I mean, you're looking at a player that really ultimately is dominant at a level that we may have not seen since, like, Aaron Donald. You know what I mean? Like, he is like, he's looking like Aaron Donald reincarnated right now. I mean, there was a play I posted on social media where Deshaun Watson's running away and Dexter Lawrence is hunting him like an animal. You know what I mean? Like, he's like a grizzly bear going after a freaking salmon. And you watch him chasing down Deshaun Watson, and Watson is looking behind him and just stumbling over his own feet because he looks like he's about to get absolutely eaten. And he ends up with an intentional grounding call that ends up costing him a down and a couple yards at the same time. So Dexter Lawrence's impact is special to watch, and the Giants need to fix this team in a lot of ways, but most of all because they can't waste the dominance of some of these core players. Dexter Lawrence, they need to go out and make some playoff appearances with this man. They need to go and make some playoff appearances with Andrew Thomas, with Malik Neighbors, right? These guys are under contract for a very long time, some of them, and we really, really, really need to capitalize on this opportunity within the next couple of seasons, in my personal opinion. I think you guys would definitely agree with that. So, that's in the future, but we're talking about right now. You talked about Elijah Chapman, Anthony, 18 pass rush snaps, right? Brian Burns had 41 and Dexter Lawrence had 42. Elijah Chapman had 18 snaps in this game. He had a 27.8% pass rush win rate. He had 4 pressures in 18 snaps. This is a young, undrafted SMU talent who is putting on an absolute freaking show, my friends. He is walking on this football field, having been overlooked in the draft process, having been ignored by the scouts, disregarded by the front offices, and you see what he is doing. All heart, all hustle, all effort. I saw Deshaun Watson's 16-yard rush, and you know who I saw chasing his ass? Elijah freaking Chapman running 20 miles an hour, hauling ass after one of the fastest quarterbacks in the NFL, and he goes up and he helps make that tackle. The guy is vintage JPP when it comes to his motor. You remember JPP and how you'd see him 40 yards downfield chasing players down? That was one of the things that made JPP so special. Elijah Chapman has that same motor, that same mentality. I am not stopping until I get that dude in my freaking claws. And he has that mindset, that determination. I freaking love it. That's what makes you a New York Football Giant. That's the type of players, that's the type of character that we want in this city. He represents the average Joe in New York. That's awesome. And I love that about Elijah Chapman. I love what he does. He had a fumble recovery in this game as well. Excellent. From him, we talked about it. He could be a gem, a hidden kind of figure in this roster bubble, and he's turned into one of those key impact players on pass rush downs. Really awesome to see. I'll let you get your 2 cents on Elijah Chapman too. Really, really special player that I'm excited to continue to watch develop.
I don't need to give my 2 cents. You just spoke for all of us, Alex. I was getting pumped right there. That got me. I'm ready to run through a wall talking about how Elijah Chapman is the everyman of the New York Giants. I mean, couldn't have said it better myself, man. I don't have much more to add. You're right. He was spectacular. He's a hustle player. The hustle was what got him onto this team. The hustle is carried into this regular season. Like, we saw it during the preseason when he ran down that Texans running back 40 yards down the field, made the tackle. We said, okay, you just made your spot on the roster. He's kept that spot on the roster. He's continued to hustle. He's played hard. He's improved week to week. Now he's developing into a solid second pass rusher on the interior. Love Chapman. I think he absolutely was a gem that the Giants found, and it's been very impressive to watch him continue to develop, and he's just getting better and better every week, and I'm so excited to see where he winds up by the end of this undrafted rookie season. But Alex, I got to bring this up here, all right? Low-key, the New York Giants' best pass rusher so far this season, What's up with Jason Pinnock, dude? This guy is a beast.
Unreal.
It's unreal.
Another sack.
He had three more pressures and another sack in this game, two quarterback hurries. The guy is constantly in the backfield, blitzing off the edge and disrupting opposing quarterbacks week to week. This is actually incredible to watch. Like, Jason Pinnock, maybe you have your criticisms about him in coverage and as a tackler, whatever, but on a safety blitz, there are few in the NFL that do it better than this guy, my friends. Jason Pinnock has been a monster on the safety blitz, and I do believe he leads, or is at least tied for the team lead in sacks so far this season. Absolutely incredible. Love what Jason Pinnock is doing from a pass rushing standpoint. Very versatile player and a key piece of Shane Bowen's new defensive scheme.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really what I was talking about before when it comes to Shane Bowen. He let the tricks out of the bag. They mashed what looked like a Wink Martindale defense with a more simplified version of Shane Bowen's system, and that was special. Like, maybe they found something. Like, maybe they've discovered something here. The NFL's a copycat league, my friends. If they aren't taking the best of everything, they're doing a disservice to themselves. The Giants and Shane Bowen just realized we can take something that we've seen before and make it even better. Because the thing about Wink Martindale's defense was that, well, you were sacrificing a lot of space because you were sending blitzers from areas. If a good quarterback would do is identify where the rush was coming from and then basically hot route it to that space where that was being left behind. So they picked apart Wink's defense that way. But when you have a system like this where you're playing a little bit more zone, Deontay Banks being more of a trailing, kind of CB1 right now, I think they're playing a little bit of zone, covering up that space, but also sending these delayed blitzes and opening up. And when you have Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, you have to double team Dexter Lawrence. You have to put a tight end to chip Brian Burns. So you're taking a tight end out of coverage or out of a route. Basically, you're having a delayed routes a lot of times there. But you're also having to allocate so many bodies to stopping those two guys. Not to mention, Raheem Nunez-Roche or Elijah Chapman, who's going off, and then Kayvon Thibodeau, who still needs to be accounted for. You have space to work with, and when you have space, you just have to cover up the space that's being left behind. So the Giants are doing a pretty good job. And I think that ultimately, when you look at this defense, there's a lot to be really excited about. But Anthony, one guy I really wanted to give some time to, and something that I said last week, by the way, and it actually kind of ended up happening, was the Giants are giving Azeez Ojulari reps in place of Kayvon Thibodeau at times right now. They're putting Azeez Ojulari on the football field a lot more. He had 20 pass rush snaps in this game, and Kayvon Thibodeau had 41. So they definitely ate into some of his reps there. But he was excellent. He had 4 pressures and 2 sacks in this game. People don't realize, like, Azeez Ojulari also had a fumble recovery, by the way. When he's on the football field healthy and looking at his best, Azeez Ojulari is one of our best pure pass rushers. He gives me kind of those, like, Bryce Huff vibes at the Jets because, like, he was on the field last year, and every time he was on the field, he produced. And Huff's not doing much this year, more so his version last year. Not like the best run stuffer by any means, but, Azeez Ojulari did gain a little bit of mass, so he is better in that regard. But I do like how every time he's on the field, he makes an impact as a rusher, a pure pass rusher, and I think that's pretty cool to have as a rotational piece. It was why I labeled him a trade candidate for the Giants this early this offseason, because I do still see a lot of value in him. But it really was predicated on the Giants being good or bad. If they're bad, they're not doing so well by the trade deadline, he might be a guy a team pays a nice pretty penny for, because if he could step in and be a starter immediately for a club. Same thing with Darius Slayton. Hopefully we don't have to trade either of those guys. I'd love to extend a guy like Azeez Ojulari probably on a pretty cheap contract, because he hasn't been healthy and whatnot. He was my breakout candidate last year. I'm happy to see him starting to turn things around this year. But I'll let you give your 2 cents on Ojulari, who's been really, really impressive over the past 2 weeks. This week specifically, he was an impact player, and I think that if he keeps carving out that role, he's going to start stealing more reps from Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, I think that everybody who tunes into this show, especially the long-term viewers of the channel, know that I've always been a big Azeez Ojulari fan. Even before he was on the New York Giants, coming out of Georgia, during that pre-draft process, Alex, when we were looking at all those mock drafts, occasionally he would pop up to the Giants at number 11 in the 2021 NFL mock drafts. And I discussed it, and I said, listen, it's a little bit early for Ojulari, but I could see it, and I wouldn't necessarily hate it, but I would love him in a trade-down scenario. Okay, he inexplicably falls out of the first round. Find out later there's some sort of knee ailment, falls all the way to the Giants at pick 50. Well, then I was elated. I was over the moon. I remember when we did our live reactions, everybody was really happy to see me get my guy on the New York Giants in Azeez Ojulari. So everybody knows that I believe in the kid, that he's got potential. I think he has a lot of savviness to his game, and he is a crafty pass rusher. He's got a great club move, and he's got a lot of speed to power. Really like him. The problem so far in his career has been injuries. He had a very solid beginning to his career, 8.5 sacks as a rookie, the most for the New York Giants since Lawrence Taylor as far as rookie pass rushers go, right? Awesome start to his career. Since then, injuries have kept him off the field consistently. And what I argued this upcoming season was that now that Brian Burns is here, full-time starter on one edge, and Kayvon Thibodeau, the other full-time starter on the other edge, Azeez Ojulari was going to play less, and as a result, stay healthier, not have as many opportunities to get injured, and be more impactful in the small spurts of snaps that he's on the field because he's going to have more energy on those snaps. And so far, that analysis has proven correct. It's been exactly what we've seen from him. He's been on the field less, but he's been making an impact more, which is exactly what I had hoped for from Azeez. And another thing that we've disagreed on this really all year, Alex. You mentioned just a second ago how you've argued maybe Azeez Ojulari could be a full-time starter elsewhere and he could be a trade candidate. And I've constantly gone against that, and I've said, listen, respect you, disagree with you, because I think that Ojulari being the third pass rusher is the key to this defense. Having a stable of pass rushers, thinking back to those 2007-11 teams where you had Tuck Umenyiora, Strahan on one of those, or Kiwanuka, or JPP. The list goes on and on. And this Giants team, no, it doesn't have that caliber of pass rushing, of a pass rushing group. It doesn't have those players, but it's building a stable. And I think it's important to have a stable. And having Azeez Ojulari as your third pass rusher is crucial. A rotational guy who's that good and has that much potential, I love that. So I do agree with you. I think Azeez Ojulari is playing his way towards an extension with the Giants as a rotational guy on a cheap 1-year prove-it deal. And I think you need players like that to succeed at the NFL level and be a really good, capable defense and pass rushing group. So I'm very impressed with what we've seen from Azeez Ojulari and hoping to see him continue to build on this and put together more strong performances throughout the season. I will say, though, Kayvon Thibodeau, not the most active pass rusher, but he's been good against the run, especially yesterday. That third down stop against the QB sneak, that was very impressive. One of the best plays that he's made all season, and I'm excited to see him continue to grow and regain his confidence throughout the year. But yeah, Alex, I've been very impressed with this pass rush from a talent standpoint, or at least I was yesterday from a talent standpoint, individuals making plays, and also from a scheme standpoint. I thought Shane Bowen did an excellent job scheming together pressure, dialing up blitzes at the right time, and just making life difficult for the Cleveland Browns offense. So any closing thoughts here on the New York Giants pass rush and defense as we continue to celebrate this Victory Monday?
I think we kind of covered it all, to be honest with you. We kind of talked about this pass rush and a lot of great things they did yesterday and beating up on a really damaged offensive line. But they're going to have a much bigger test on Thursday. Short turnaround. Giants got a game plan. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, my friends, are very vulnerable right now. They just lost again to the Baltimore Ravens. It was a really, really solid game. I mean, the Ravens beat the brakes off of them in the first half, and they kind of let up. And Jackson kind of said the same thing that we were saying after yesterday's game, Anthony. Why did we let up? Why did we take our foot off the gas? We should have buried them. That's what the Giants should have done to the Browns yesterday. And instead, they kept them in the game and almost let them make a full comeback there. The Giants need to bury their opponents in the second half. That is what good teams do. So if they manage to get up against Dallas on Thursday, they need to bury them, not let them hang around and do some good stuff. They need to bury them. So their defense is completely vulnerable right now. They're having a lot of problems transitioning from Dan Quinn's defense to a different one. So I do think that when it comes to this offense for the Giants, projecting ahead, obviously a short week here, so I think it's worthwhile. But Malik Neighbors, time to cook again, buddy. Your order's up, so you're going to have to get the ball, do a lot of stuff after the catch. But I think that they're very susceptible to the deep ball. I think the Giants can get some nice passes downfield on them, and I do think our running game has to be the focal point. Derrick Henry beat the absolute crap out of Dallas. So did Alvin Kamara. So Devin Singletary, big fan of him this upcoming week. They're having a lot of problems in the interior of that defense, stopping the run. They're really lacking talent there. So expecting a lot of good stuff from them. Obviously, isolating Micah Parsons will be the priority. I think Andrew Thomas, after really getting beaten up a little bit against Myles Garrett like anyone would, is going to have a nice bounce back performance this upcoming week. And thank God for Jermaine Illuminor, holding it down at right tackle. Finally, we don't have to think about that anymore. But defensively, put pressure on Dak Prescott. They're going to move the football. They're going to do some stuff, but they have no running game. The Dallas Cowboys legitimately do not have a running game. So when it comes to stopping them, I expect them to really bracket CeeDee Lamb a lot. I know they got the ball to like Turbin and Ferguson a couple times. Like they're trying to find their outlets. But if CeeDee Lamb can be taken out essentially of the game, they can basically shut down their offense. So I'm expecting a pretty solid showing from this Giants team. I think it probably ends up being like, maybe like a 24-27 type of finish. Like, there's going to be scoring, but I think if they take CeeDee Lamb out of this contest, or at least they limit him, I don't think you can really take him out, but you can try to contain him. I do think the Giants can do some good work in this one, so that's kind of what I foresee this upcoming Thursday. But the pass rush is where it starts and where it's ultimately going to end for the Giants. We knew this going into the season. They were going to have to perform at a high level to protect this secondary that's a little bit inexperienced and weaker.
No doubt, it's going to be a very exciting prime time matchup between the Giants and the Cowboys on Thursday. I'm excited to preview it over the next couple of days as we prepare for it. But I will just say, the one thing that I am really hyped for in that game, it's Malik Neighbors' first time on primetime. Sometimes we get the bright lights on these young superstar receivers, and great, fantastic things happen. Of course, we know OBJ's first time playing on primetime was against the Cowboys. We all know the infamous catch. I'm not saying that I'm setting those kind of high expectations for Malik Neighbors, but, kid's dominant. Kid's been a superstar for over the past couple of weeks. I'm excited to see him on primetime, but we'll get more into the game preview stuff over the coming days. Just really excited to react to a win here on a Victory Monday. Very fun stuff. Giants 1-2, and technically back in the race. Whether or not we want to be overly positive and say that they're really in the race, or maybe they're just trending in the right direction, I'll leave that open to you guys. But again, just excited to be reacting to a win. Feels good after a pretty miserable start to the season. But Giants on the up and up, looking better. Big win against Cleveland. Happy to discuss it. Happy to also place that bet tonight, and hopefully it cashes as the Bills probably put up over 25 points against the Jaguars. I think that's a pretty good bet. But that's pretty much going to do it. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Fireside Giants powered by BetUS. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.